The world has changed. This is a cartoon, somebody, that is a teller. He's saying, "Good morning, madam, fill her up." This is, in a world of negative interest rates, that's one way to represent it. And who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? In this morning's Wall Street Journal, it's reported that there is now over $10 trillion of sovereign debt in the world with negative interest rates. We'll come back to that in a second. It's a different world. Let's look at growth for starters, okay? Long term, it's slowing down. This is a 60-year trend, okay? Now, the first thing you notice from this chart, that's annual economic growth each year for the past 60 years. The first thing you notice, obviously, is it changes a lot, okay? It goes up and down all the time. But nonetheless, if you had to draw a trend line through that chart, it's going to be going down and to the right. And in particular, what you notice is that up until 10 or 11 years ago, it was going up and down right around 3%. It's now been 11 years since we had a year that had 3% growth. We have to ask whether there is something larger going on in the economy that just means slightly slower growth. The political class, they like to blame one another for policy, saying that's what caused it. Maybe it isn't. Maybe there is something larger going on. And in fact, there are economists, again bipartisan, saying that, yeah, maybe that's true. Specifically, we had about 100 years from the 1870s to the 1970s of incredible growth. And for various reasons, it's just going to be hard to match that again. Long-term slowing growth, it's just part of the reality. And this is a kind of a complicated chart, but I want to take you through it because it's very instructive. The Fed doesn't believe it. Forecasters in general don't believe it. So look, that black line across the bottom, solid black line, that's actual GDP growth, year after year. Those colored lines across the top, every year the Fed makes a 2-year forecast of economic growth. All right? That's their 2-year forecast every year. Maybe you notice a pattern, right? Every year, they think growth is going to go back up to what it used to be, right? It's slow now, but it's going to get a whole lot better. Every year they do it. And every year they are not even close to what actually happens. They just don't believe that we could be in a long-term change. All the evidence suggests that maybe we are. Interest rates. It's a strangely similar story. This is long-term falling rates. This is for several countries, UK, Euro, United States, Canada, Japan. This is the 20-year trend, but it's actually a 35-year trend. We could have extended the chart. Well, look, the trend is incredibly clear. And this ends in the middle of 2015. Today, the rates are lower still. Nobody thought they could go below zero, but they can go below zero. And again, the experts don't believe it. Here's a chart that looks almost identical to the one I just showed you. That jagged blue line is what we just looked at, long-term falling rates over the past 20 years. Those other lines are the forecasts of a consensus of economists. You know, every few years, they do their forecast of future interest rates. It's exactly the same. Well, they're low now, but they're going to go back to what they were. Year after year, for 20 years now, they've been getting it wrong. They always forecast that the rates are going to go up back to where they were. And instead, they just keep going down. Maybe something larger is going on. Slightly slower growth, much lower rates. Maybe there's something larger in the economy that's causing this. And there's substantial evidence that maybe there is. We have the so-called savings glut with more and more capital coming into the global economy from emerging markets as they develop. At the same time, we have an economy increasingly based on services and information that just doesn't require as much capital as an old industrial economy used to require. More supply, lower demand. The price, in this case the price of money, goes down. Okay. Not everything reverts to the mean. We should all be suspicious whenever somebody says this time is different. right? Because usually this time isn't different. But every once in a while, this time really is different. And it may be, in fact, there is substantial evidence that now, this time it really is different. Maybe growth isn't going to revert to the mean, and maybe rates aren't going to revert to the mean. That's the way it looks to me. We're just having a hard time accepting that reality.